I almost want to change the name of it to DMO, decision making offense, not dribble drive. I mean, it's just I get out in the paint. What decision do I make? Do I score it? Who helped? Who do I give it off to? What decision do I make based upon where he went off of his penetration?
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the founder of System Basketball, Marc Hart. After 20 plus years of high school coaching, Coach Hart created System Basketball in March of 2020. System Basketball is a community for basketball coaches to take a deeper dive into the latest trends in basketball. He specializes in virtual online clinics, online courses, playbooks, exit and O video breakdowns, and he hosts the Baskipedia podcast to help coaches around the world. To learn more, check out systembasketball.com. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on with us. And I have been learning from you from afar and the way that we run dribble drive and the things that we do at Faith. It really aligns. And I know that you love the system and that style of play, which is near and dear to my heart. But man, I just want to thank you so much for giving your time today.
I appreciate you having me on and love talking basketball. You know that. So
no doubt.
Anything I can do to help your audience as well. So,
well, tell me a little bit about how, before we get going with our questions, which I love the ones that you chose, tell me a little bit about System Basketball, how you came to create this whole virtual, kind of fast basketball, one-stop shop, everything that you need, and how that started for you.
Well, it started back in when we all got locked down. But I was part of the Yahoo group with Bob Belf, the run and gun group, and literally we were in a chat, like Yahoo chat, not a Facebook group, not an instant messenger. We were chatting like in a forum, like back and forth, like old archaic stuff. And I was like, can we like move this to Zoom or something so we can talk? And then about 5 or 6 of us got on a Zoom. And at that time, I don't even know if anybody knew Zoom, to be honest. Now everybody's using it. And I was on the free plan where it was like 40 minutes you get or whatever, and then it cuts you off. So we like stopped it and popped back on like 3 or 4 times. We were just talking basketball, talking system. And then I got Lauren Glenn I got Matt Peterson. He was gonna do a topic and called it Moneyball, and did this whole thing. And lo and behold, guys like Dave Arsenal, George Barber, Doug Porter, Gary Smith, all the legends of the system came on, and then it became, hey, I'll do a talk, and then the genesis of it becoming a one-stop shop, people started going, well, can you get somebody on this topic? Can you get somebody on that topic? And it grew from there. Without my wildest dreams, it would be to what I'm doing today, where I quit my full-time job in January of 2021. And now I'm talking basketball, helping coaches. I present myself as well. I do a lot of topics myself, but bringing coaches on, starting the membership, having an access of libraries, and my whole genesis of it, System Basketball isn't just necessarily for the system or the LMU, Grinnell. I always joke with people, what Coach Bennett does at Virginia, mover blocker, and his pack line is a system or a style of play. So I'm trying to reach out to the ordinary high school coach, if you will, find people that are knowledgeable on a subject matter that coaches can relate to more than a Coach K or someone like that has elite level talent, and they listen to the talk and they go, oh, they're doing it at the high school level. This is how they teach it. It's more relevant for me to listen to that type of topic or that speaker. And I think people are finding more value in that than going to the big horse, if you will,
Yeah.
or the top dog. But like, that's great. You can teach it. You got 6'10", 250 at that position, and I don't have that. But
Yeah.
I like the style of play. So that's the genesis of it. And it's just growing and growing and growing. And now it was me searching people out to speak. Now I'm getting people emailing me and saying, hey, I have this. Would you be interested in me speaking? So it's kind of
Wow.
unique that I have people reaching out to me a little bit and not having to go find people each month to speak.
Yeah, I
That was
think
long
that's
winded to your
no.
question, but that's kind of the genesis of it.
It's all right. I think it's a great idea because you're right. Like I go to clinics all the time, and it is awesome to hear from these coaches that have done amazing things and are at such a high level. But there's always this thought in the back of my head of like, I love their action, I love what they're doing, but could it really work for where I am and for the type of athlete? I'm at a small private school where majority of our players come to our school not for basketball, but for the Christian atmosphere, one, the academics, then maybe they like the game. And so that's what made me, when we're just talking really more system, meaning the fast basketball, fast paced
Mhm.
Grinnell and all that's what made me stumble on that as a way to get my guys excited, a way to get my guys more players active, especially within their getting their own individual skill work right, because they knew that they would get to run and gun and have some fun, as we've said before. But I love the idea that you're reaching out, and it's kind of my idea for doing this too. Is there's so many great coaches. I'm in Texas, so many great coaches in Texas that are doing awesome things that don't always have a platform to get to
Correct.
share that. And so I think you and I are aligned in a lot of ways there.
Yeah. So for you personally, I have Cole Hicks, coaches in Georgia. His dad I had on a podcast, Glenn Hicks, been running LMU for 30 years. He's going to
Wow.
come and talk about how to run Loyola Marymount for high school. And then Birmingham Southern, who just led D3 in scoring on the women's side, they're going to come and talk about their version of the system in April. So I'm going back to the roots a little bit with
Yeah.
some people, some new people that are running it. I just did a pod the other day with a coach in San Diego that set some records on it. So it's coming back, the Grinnell LMU crazy style, or whatever people want, the circus, whatever people want to refer to it as, is coming back a little bit. So I'm going back to the roots a little bit.
So my journey with the system, it was, I think, when Guru of Go came out. I watched that, and I just loved there because the school that I'd been at before, McKinney High School, we would run and gun, but there wasn't this idea. The speed wasn't the same. The emphasis on shooting threes wasn't the same. And so when I came to Grapevine Faith, I inherited a really good team and that were big and strong, and we did play fast. We shot a lot of threes, but then in the next couple of years, I really started to dive into what does Coach Arsenault do at Grinnell. What are these other guys? That book that Porter and Doug Smith are those the right
Coaching the
names?
system.
Yeah, I got
Coaching,
that.
yeah, Gary Smith and Doug Porter. Yep.
So I poured through that, and I put together a PowerPoint and brought my parents in and got everybody hyped up for this, not experiment, but this crazy idea of how we were going to play fast, lead the nation, and shooting and making threes and all this stuff.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild that you have to do a PowerPoint
Yeah, that's right.
to explain that you're going to do that? If you ran flex, you would never have to do that.
That's true. But it is. It's outside the box. Like here's what I ended up finding is we had some lightning in a bottle moments where, I mean, we had 15 different guys make threes, scored 114 points.
Wow.
But there were things where I felt like our parents and administration couldn't get on board with what they were seeing. And there was this lack of defense, even though we were forcing 30 plus turnovers a game. So I went about a year and a half really trying to make that work. And then I don't know if other coaches have ever felt this, but basically my athletic director brought me in and said, we need to do something different. And so we had to dial it back a little bit. And I was getting some friction. And I know Coach Arsenault I've been able to talk with him and Coach Barber. They both made comments that sometimes your best players struggle with it a little bit because they're getting, in their mind, the same amount of time, the same amount of opportunities as guys 10, 11, 12, 13. But in my heart, I love the system. I love what it represents, is free flowing, like Barber says, devalue winning so freedom can flourish. I love all of it.
It's, yeah. Listening to a lot of coaches that I've interviewed, you've interviewed a lot of the same people, and Coach Glenn Hicks, I asked him this point blank, why do you think Loyola Marymount sustains at high school as opposed to the Grinnell? And he said he has a little old school in him, and he wants his best two players to stay on the floor.
Yeah.
And I think the overcoming stigma of the Grinnell style is the hockey style subbing.
The shifts.
If you weren't subbing five in, 5 out, it probably does not have the same connotation with parents and admin in there, and maybe adjusting the press a little bit where you're not giving up as many layups, if you will.
Yeah,
but that's the whole thing.
Yeah, if you can mentally get to the place though, as a coach, where I don't care how, as long as we get the ball back quickly. If you can get there mentally, where even a made layup on a fast break, it only took them 5 seconds to do that. That's just as good as playing defense for 20, 30 seconds and getting a stop. If you can get there, that it's special.
I love to play fast, and I've studied the Grinnell style since like 2011, but I've never honestly pulled the trigger and fully done it. I've done it like a couple games here or there, but then me overcoming some of the things that you said, the layups, the massive swings, and this is stupid, and the comments, and you gotta be a little crazy to do it. And it's unique that it's mainly done at D3 schools, where it's participation based, smaller schools. And I've seen, like right now though, I've had the question, can you win doing it? Well, Glenville State, Coach Kim Stevens' program is in the D2. I think she made it. She's either in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I'm not positive where they're at, but they've lost one basketball game all year. Running 5 in, 5 out. They don't run the Grinnell break. They run their own. And Nova Southeastern, who does not sub 5 in, 5 out. They play more of a Loyola Marymount, but they play full court man-to-man and play very fast. They're in the Final Four on the men's side in D2, and they're undefeated. They haven't lost a game on the season. So we're talking D2 programs that are playing super fast. Glenville plays about as close to a Grinnell style as you can without saying it's fully Grinnell. Yeah. So if people are wanting to see some teams, quote unquote, can you win at the highest levels, or can you win the meaningful games? Well, they're at the highest parts of their tournaments, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
That's a good point. That argument always bugged me. You can't win or you can't sustain it that way. I mean, Grinnell had many winning seasons, and like if the measuring stick on success is how many national championships you've won, well then hardly any programs are successful, or how deep runs. But in in 20 years of doing it, they won the conference championship 3 or 4 times. There's not many schools in the Big 12 besides Kansas that can say they've done that. But there's still successful programs. The idea of having, to me, it's the freest way to play. You take, especially the 5 in, 5 out, you take the fear of getting pulled out away. You take the fear of, or anxiety of, when do I go back in, pulled away, and you allow them to play instinctively and within certain concepts. I love it. I don't think I'll ever go back to it. I think we found with our level of athletes at Faith, a defense that we run, and a type of dribble drive that we're comfortable with and allows us to win. And players and parents, I don't think we can underestimate this enough. Players and parents can mentally get on board with it. They're seeing something that they understand rather than the 5 in 5 out, which blows their mind.
Real quick to elaborate on what you said about success. If I threw out Gonzaga, they're probably the best basketball program in the last 5 years in college basketball, and they have 0 national championships.
Yep.
But they've been the most successful program for the last 5 years in men's college basketball.
Yeah, right on the money. What coaches or leaders do you follow closely?
I mean, I follow them from afar. I mean, some of them don't even coach anymore, but some people, just by doing this over the last 2 years, have kind of changed my philosophy on things or made me think outside the box. Doc Shepler, a high school California coach, coaches on the girls' side, has won 6 state championships, and just kind of changed my view on skill development, ideas of shooting the basketball, hop shooting as opposed to 1-2 shooting. I know he teaches both, but I know he's a proponent of the hop and why it's successful.
Where are you at on
that? I think there's a place for both, but on standstill, catch and shoot, I like the hop. I still struggle with when they're driving into the paint and they have to do like a 1 dribble pull up of them hopping. My players lose their balance a little bit, so they 1-2 majority of those.
Yep.
But just catch and shoot off penetration and kicks type stuff, I favor the hop. I've been watching I switched the girls' side recently this year after coaching 25 years on the boys. So with a little bit of adjustment, I've been watching a lot of women's tournament games and watching their actions.
Yeah.
And when they get their shots off on the women's side, it seems like they hop all the time. I don't know if it's biomechanical, if it's better for them, or if it's easier to shoot it with power from distance. But that's one guy. Vance Wahlberg's always been a big influence on me with the dribble drive. I'm here in California. If you go watch high school basketball in Fresno, which is in central part of California, which is 4 to 5 hours from me, if you're not running the dribble drive, you're like an outlier. He totally changed the community. Wow. He changed. If there's one guy one of the guys that should go to the Hall of Fame for innovative styles is him. And then Paul Westhead's had a big influence on my life. Growing up, watching LMU when I was in high school, and watching their style of play and the motivational story of them going when Hank passed away, and Bo Kimball, Fryer, the Human Bruise, they just encapsulated. And I've always loved fast break basketball. So guys another influence, I mean, people say he can't coach because he was with the Lakers and he didn't win an NBA championship. He was terrible for the Lakers. He went to Houston, couldn't win, was at New York, couldn't win. Mike D'Antoni. Awesome. If you go watch NBA basketball, there's an aspect of his 21 series, his pistol, whatever you want to refer to that as. Everybody's running those type of things. Everybody's Vance Wahlberg. Everybody knows what dribble drive is and probably has some sort of aspect in their game evolving from that. But those are some of the guys that have offensively that I've really looked at, system and defensive stuff. Gary Smith and Doug Porter, their book, meeting them, by doing what I do, in constant contact with those guys. Awesome. And they're a mentoring, like sounding board, like, even though I'm not fully doing it, like what tweaks, what ideas do you have? Because we play fast, but we don't run, like I said, the full system. But I want to learn the things that they do defensively and their techniques. But so those are some of the guys of late that have some past and newer that have influenced the way I teach and coach the game.
Those are some incredible names. I've always wanted to. I think a bucket list item for me would be to get to talk to Westhead. And I don't know health wise how he's doing or where he's at, but
Oh, he's sharp as a tack.
yeah,
I had him on last year.
so right about Vance Wahlberg though. The innovation of dribble drive. I was actually just had a talk with a coach who said, "Yeah, we don't run dribble drive anymore, like the 4 out 1 in." But he said, "Dribble drive is the offense behind everything we run." I think that's a good way of looking at it. So much of the game now
Yeah.
is that, with maybe some tweaks or different actions
There is
to start.
one more guy I forgot. Doug Novak. He was at Bethel University. He was the interim girls coach at Mississippi State this year, and he's taken some of the dribble drive concepts and blended it into he calls it drive in space. So there's more passing and cutting and moving, and he has a little bit of different style. So I've incorporated a lot of his finishing stuff and his cuts into what we do. He's a phenomenal offensive mind and great basketball coach.
Mark Cassio is a guy that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
He's a guy that really helped me go from that 4 out 1 in dribble drive to a 5 out, and the simplicity of just what he was teaching at the high school he was at. I think now he's at Appalachian State on the girls' side. Yeah. So I just he was huge for me.
I just mentioned Doug Novak. Basically, he's taken Doug's stuff and transitioned it to a 5 out. Instead of having the player like in the dunker spot, he's moved him to the stretch and uses a lot of Doug's concepts with his own. So Those two guys are in the drive and space mesh. Those are the two top guys to listen to.
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest things that, besides not having a guy in that dunker spot, that sometimes would just give you almost a permanent help side defender sitting in there. I mean, there's things that you could do, but I love moving that guy to the stretch, but also the absence of real basket cuts where the cuts are more shallow and moving to a place to create gaps. I thought that was just huge for me because in dribble drive, I always felt like it was running back, everybody trying to do the same thing. For now, we open the floor up a little more and the guys can really utilize the gifts and skills they have or just space. It's brilliant.
I think the worst thing ever was the I don't know, it was marketing genius or what it was of John Calipari, but of naming it dribble drive. It gives it a negative kind of connotation. That's all it is. Where the original name, of the offense is awesome. So if you're trying to market a video or something like that to get to coaches, I don't know how you market it as awesome. It's attack, skip, attack.
Wow.
So that was what Vance.
I've never heard that before. Wow.
It was. I think I might have it. It was attack, skip, attack. So AASAA. If someone was hearing that, they might think it's some sort of organization that you go to that gets you some help.
Yeah.
So
it's not catchy. It's not.
No. Yeah. So you can imagine a coach. We're running ASA today. What's that? It's not drive in space. It's not dribble drive motion. It's not race in space. Pace in space. I've heard various ones over the last year and a half of different versions of what a driving kick principal offense pretty much is.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. What's your favorite style of play to teach with your teams or to teach other people?
I have to say dribble drive. I ran it since 2008. I was a flex coach. I've messed around with, sure, people have experienced this where you're watching and you're young and dumb and you go, oh, Kansas won a national championship. Let's go run the high-low when Bill Self was running that. So you go put that in. But then I stumbled across dribble drive on an accident. It was a summer game where we were losing, and I think I've been a couple of years at the new job, and I was the ex-coach at this school, and we're playing San Dimas High School in a summer league game. And the program I was at, I was building. We were never any good, and they were struggling. They were bottom of the barrel in the league. We're playing a summer league game. We're down 6 with 2 minutes to go. I call timeout and say, we're going to press full court, make or miss, and we're going to drive it to the basket and shoot a layup. If you draw 2 defenders, kick it to a player spaced out, and we're going to shoot. So that's what we got it into overtime. The kids go, we get into overtime, and my point guard goes, we got to run 2 guard, which was our version of flex. And I said, screw 2 guard, continue to do what we just did to put it into overtime. And this is prior to knowing who Vance was and what it was. So that was the origin of it. And then when I got his video and started studying it, the one thing that stuck and changed my mind on this stuff was, what do you do when you're down 6 with a minute and a half to go?
Yeah.
You usually tell your players exactly what I just said. Well, if that's what you teach them when you're behind, why don't you teach that throughout the whole 32 minutes? So that so you always have a chance to come back. So my thing is going to blow people's mind is studying it over the years, and I do have a course and stuff on it, but it's a framework. I don't even know if it's really an offense. I think people should teach this, and it can go with any offense you want to teach, because the question always remains is, if your players put the ball on the floor and penetrate to the basket, do they know where they can pass the ball to, or do the players know where they should move in relationship to the penetration?
Yep.
And you can go Princeton with it, you can go flex with it, you can go high post spread, but bottom line is, if you're watching these games on television, they're running sets. But late in the games, you watch Duke, Michigan State, you watched Arizona last night, they're putting the ball on the floor and attacking the hole.
Yeah.
They're not scoring. Teams are taking away the sets. They're scouting sets. It's, unfortunately, not all of us have it, but they're making players have to make plays. So it's a mindset. It's not an offense. It's a mindset and a framework, teaching people spacing and their penetration rules and the attack mindset. That's why I think it's great to teach at the high school level, like your freshman team and moving up. And you got to add things to it, just like anything. If you were a flex coach, when I started flex, you were able to go slot to slot and just run the flex pattern, and you might have got shots. Then people learned more about it, started taking away the actions, and now you have to run counters like St. Peter's did. St. Peter's and Providence are running the 1980s flex offense that is still successful for their programs. They're both in the Sweet 16. So, but you watch them, they put the ball on the floor, and players know how to rotate and move. So if you don't teach that, I think it's hard for me. Dribble drive, why I like it is I think you almost have to start with it. It's hard to teach like a Princeton and then go DDM. It's hard to teach a flex, then go DDM. I think it's easier to go in reverse.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think watching so much of it's even college basketball, it's running plays, but there's no emphasis on making plays until they run an action that it doesn't really look like, and maybe there's some strategy involved of, we're playing a superior team, we need to shorten the game by having longer possessions, so we're going to run some action without really ever looking to score. And there's rarely any double gaps to attack, but then, oh crap, it's 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Isolate, either ball screen, and try to get to the paint and create for each other. But like you said, we're teaching not an offense, but concepts that will allow our players to, I mean, the essence of great playmaking is engaging two. If you can score against one, you're good. If you can attack and engage another, you're special. And I think what we're talking about allows players to do that really well, and you nailed it, but they have the escapes, they have the next options there, and they're confident with that. Because I see guys drive in these college games, maybe even in the middle of the action they're trying to run, but there's a single gap, not a double gap. There's a player and a body in the way of where they're trying to get. And we're just talking about simplifying it and breaking it down.
Yeah, I've said numerous times on podcasts and clinics is if your offense is not creating closeouts, you have a crappy offense. And my thing is at the high school level, I mean, you see it at the levels, and it almost cost TCU in regulation. They set a high ball screen in the middle of the floor late in the game. In my eyes, some of these guys can get downhill if you just send the cutter through and open up that double, triple gap.
Yeah, slice.
Why bring another defender up where they could trap you and blow it up? I mean, how many times do you watch end of game situations? And I'm a big LeBron fan, but guy just ISOs at the top and he stands there and does a step back three late in the game. Almost every time that's his last shot where, geez, just send a gap, send it through, and no one can stop you.
Yeah.
And if
He's
they do,
biggest, baddest
if
dude
they
on the
do,
floor. Yeah.
if they do, pass the basketball.
Yeah.
To a shooter. And the ball screen is great again, but it I think causes a lot of problems. But what you nailed was why people do it is for matchups. That people don't understand why they use ball screens. And number two is it does put two on the ball to create I'm putting them into rotation, scrambling, closeouts, what have you. So ball screens with dribble drive. I mean, people are starting to add ball screens to dribble drive. You're mixing in staggers away to get some movement. So now dribble drive has become the flex of the 80s, where when I first put it in 2008, I was a little bit ahead of the curve. You can go middle penetration, send your player behind, kick it, and they just go straight downhill, and someone's going, what do you mean that player's going behind? They're supposed to flare to the wing like in a normal
to push away.
Yeah. The circle movement, if you will, of read and react type style of offense. And they're like, what is this? Now people switch that and zone it. And so you got to have cuts and fully understand. And you're teaching players, don't drive single gaps, only drive double and triple gaps. The big saying is pass through single gaps and drive through doubles and triples. And when people are coming to me or going, hey, I'm struggling with this, I always say, are you opening up gaps?
Yep.
Are you getting ball movement? Or is your point guard the only person ever initiating the offense? And it develops players.
Yep.
I always joke like, so I ran flex, so it's not really a knock, and I'm loving what St. Peter's is doing, but it's hard to get kids to go to the park nowadays anyways to play. But if they're going to go to the park or they're going to go play, they're going to probably work on attacking and they're going to work on shooting.
Yeah.
They're not going to work on coming off a flex cut or setting a flex cut at the park.
I think you nailed it there is the type of playing we're talking about. What do all coaches want? They want higher engagement from their players. They want more buy-in. They want more intrinsic initiative to get in the gym and work on their game. But if you're running a style or playing an offense that deep down, listen, coach, we run flex. I'm only a screener. Can I go now? Can I leave? Like you're gonna have that feeling from players. But when all of them listen, if you put in the time, and if you can attack off the bounce, there's a lot of fun that you can have. But if you can catch and shoot, there's a place for you too to really maximize that skill. Man, I feel like you'll just have a lot more involvement and buy-in from them.
Well, people are the big buzzword is conceptual offenses, right? So with COVID and with injuries and and it's an offense that you can do 2-on-2 in practice, 3-on-3. You're just playing off spacing and playing off. You don't have to have 10 players at practice to run in practice playing. It's skill developing within an offense. So I said this about a few weeks ago. I almost want to change the name of it to DMO, decision making offense.
Oh, I like
not dribble drive. I mean, it's just I get out in the paint. What decision do I make? Do I score it? What finishing move? Who helped? Who do I give it off to? Okay, he drove. The other 4 players are, what decision do I make based upon where he went off of his penetration? Yeah. So it's biggest problem with it is people just watch the ball, and people they're not getting how to play off of the ball, how to, I call them vomit shots, when you drive and there's 2 or 3 people in the lane and they just still throw it up at the backboard. And you say, because of analytics and all that stuff, I think we're going to get into that later, but just because you're getting in the paint doesn't mean it's a good shot. So
at the basis of every offense is shot selection. Like day 1 meeting next year. All right, guys, we're going to start with shot selection, because that loses games, that wins games. People, you could talk, well, turnovers are big. Yes, they are. Rebounds are big. Yes, effort. If you're not giving effort, you're not going to win anyway. But shot selection is something we can really control, and it's very personal for people. So having a scale and having verbiage that everybody on your team understands and can be on board with, I don't care what you run. When you nail down shot selection, a guy goes to the paint and he understands that the degree of difficulty in the shot that he's about to take is not what we're looking for. His eyes will go up. He'll start to chill, relax in the paint, and find that open shooter. But I've seen shot selection be something that you got to nail down early. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. Here's a good question for you. All the systems that do you fit players into your style, or does your style change based on the players that you have?
I typically start with the skeleton of dribble drive, but then we'll adjust it based upon who we have. I've moved it to 5 out. We incorporated 1 year some high post spread because we couldn't really put it on the floor as much. So we incorporated Dana Altman's spread, high post spread, where it had some pinch post actions, and it worked. It blended really well because once you put it on the floor, the kids understood already get to those spots, and it's more shuffle cuts and some pinch post triangle actions. But typically we are teaching dribble drive because the kids have been learning it since their freshman year. So as they move up in the program, it's already ingrained. And most of the schools I've ever been at, tallest kid I usually have is about 6'3". So we only have really 1 or 2 kids to put in the dunker spot, and the rest are guards. Yeah. So
what about the coach that says, well, I love what you're doing, but we don't have guys that can dribble or drive or shoot. What's your, because I've had that talk when they watch us move the ball, they watch us attack, and it's we just don't have guys that can do that. What's your your answer to that?
What are you doing to develop it? I mean, if you can't shoot, what can you run?
Yeah, what offense will work? Yeah.
I mean, if you're not skilled, that was going back to my point of like the flex, or if they know this is the offense we're going to run only, then they're going to be working on mid-range, coming off screens, jump shots. They're not going to be working on driving and various finishes around the rim of what the offense gets you. We're talking high school basketball, and correct me if I'm wrong if your situation is, you look at your team every year and you probably have the ordinary Joe kid that's just on a team that's just happy to play, or it's something to do. Buddies are on the team, and you maybe have two serious basketball players.
Yeah.
And those are the ones putting in the work to get better, and the other ones are not. So what are you doing within your basketball program to develop players that are not necessarily full-time commitment players, if you will?
Yeah. I think more attention and time spent with individual skill work will, one, make your offense run smoother. It'll make you look better as a team. I think the guys will have more fun because sometimes it is hard if you're, how many coaches, and I've been guilty of this, are asking players to do something that they're not confident that they can do. And because either they know they haven't put in the time, or your individual skill work doesn't really set them up for success in that. But I think more attention and emphasis on individual skill work, more fun, more buy-in, help those, not just the two guys get better that are there, but the others that need to help them.
Great. I mean, it's role definition. This kid of coaching is trying to get kids, put them in a position where they succeed, but in a game, helping them understand this is what you're good at, this is what you're not good at. So we need to see you doing, hopefully getting more of these opportunities to do this, and in practice and your skill development, going, okay, let's work on these things to get you to have a bigger role, like you said, and get them excited about wanting to get better, and helping their teammates succeed. If everybody gets better, the whole team should get better. So you got to find ways to do that, and that's always a struggle with kids in programs, I think, that are elite. It's easier to win because you have more kids that are serious in a roundabout way, and they pick up and they're like, oh, I want to elevate to them. And when you only have one or two of them, it's hard to carry the other 10.
Yeah,
so it's a dynamic as a coach that you got to try to find a way to motivate, like you said, the other 10, 12 that aren't as good as your top two, to try to get their game going, to help as far as on the court production, wins and losses with that aspect of it, better.
One thing you said, and let me ask you this. I know in games, we don't want players to experiment. Like, we don't want them trying things in games that they've never done before. But in practice, because at what point do we allow them to try to show us or demonstrate to us that they can do a skill? Because I think I've been guilty of, in practice, regulating shot selection, or a player who doesn't typically shoot threes for me. We're doing a lot of skill work, and I know he's been putting in the time. In practice, am I allowing him to take those chances so that he can demonstrate to me or himself that this is a skill that I can bring to the game? Is that the right time to do that, or when does it happen?
I think the biggest problem is kids don't play one-on-one at the park anymore. You know, they need to play against older kids. They need to go. I think as coaches, we try to structure stuff too much.
Yeah.
And so we got to get this in, we got to get this in, and the teaching how to play basketball is probably not being taught enough, and putting them in situations. The buzzword is small-sided games, which I'm getting older now and realizing it, but to me, a small-sided game is just a breakdown drill of what you do, and it's just another new term of teaching that way. But kids need to play more. So I think more coaches are starting to go to small-sided games. They're not necessarily playing 5-on-5. They're doing things 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and building it up and playing, instead of, oh, we're going to do a deny drill up the line, or we're going to do this and we're going to do that. It's more playing based. And I think the more people that are going to that, they're probably seeing more results where kids are more likely to be at practice, and practices are more upbeat, music being played, and different things to relate to this generation. Where me and you played, never heard of that you would have music playing in practice.
That's right. My practices are not meant for your enjoyment. That's what you and I.
Correct.
That's where you and I played. I think.
Yeah, so we didn't deal with Facebook, Twitter, and
Yeah.
Instagram. So
I think giving them an opportunity, and this is something that I need to remember, is giving them a place where they can experiment. Like what do you do in a laboratory? You experiment. Sometimes you're going to blow things up, and sometimes it's going to go horribly wrong. But we got it, because you're right. We used to do that out at the park. We play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, or 5-on-5 against some bad players, but we would try things that we've been working on and see how this felt, and then go back and work on it some more. It's all structured now. They go to team practice, then they go to their NBA skill coach, the pro skill coach, and then they go, and there are a lot of good ones, but then they go to another structured deal, and then they play a structured game. Where do they get to work on the things that they know they have to improve?
Matt, I agree with you to an extent, but I think it's more like they go to one skill practice and then they go play 8 games on the week.
That's true. I probably gave them too much practice there, too much work. Well, there's a whole Tyler Costin with PGC did a great talk on getting good versus getting seen. This idea as freshmen that we're going to go to a tournament, play 4 games to get exposure. But then if you really do the math, they have the ball in their hands for about 8 minutes over the weekend.
Yep.
Where you could go home, save some money, go to the gym, go to the rec, and spend a lot more time on your game. Because the time to get seen is farther on, and hopefully you're good at that point.
We're guilty of that. I'm guilty of that, where here July's the big AAU time, right? And what is it? April or May is viewing period, and July's viewing period. So I pretty much said May and June you're with us, and July we stop playing. We just say go for the few that are good enough. And you're right. You said exposure, but what they're really getting is exposed. Yeah. So because they're not. I mean, shooting. They rather do what they see in the NBA that in high school it's called a travel if you do the James Harden step back.
Double step back.
It's a walk in high school basketball.
Yeah.
And they want to do, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've taught the Euro step, but count how many times a kid's going to use the Euro step in an actual game when they probably should have just done a stride step and a pivot up under or some sort of move like that off 2 feet. And Villanova, somebody said it I was watching their game, they're the best 2-foot jump stop team in America every year.
It's a clinic. Yeah.
It's watching Jay Wright coach offense. He doesn't coach offense. Yeah. He coaches how to play basketball. And they're fundamental can be. And will Gillespie be an NBA pro? Probably not, but he's a top college basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a great reminder. So I love I'm Possible stuff with Michael Lancaster and training tools. Even though with any coach or trainer, there's probably some things that you can't really get on board with, but then there's a lot of what he does that just I see the game application and what he calls game connectors. I can see it. And so I like pushing my guys a little bit in that arena with some skill work, but then we always have to remember to help them to become great at the things that they're going to do the most. They're going to do catch threes the most. They're going to attack the paint and hopefully finish off of 2 feet the most. Yeah, right. The Euro step, that's a rare thing. That's like going to a fancy steak restaurant, but you eat at Chili's most of the time. Like you got to do those simple things well, but then keeping it interesting, and that's the fun of it, and the art of it is giving them chances to grow, and to make decisions and make mistakes, but then also helping them to keep good at the things that they do most of the time.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
All right. What role do analytics play in your coaching style?
I subscribe to Key Freer 3. So we want to score in the paint, uncontested rhythm threes, and we want to we obviously want to get to the foul line. So that being said, typically my top 2 basketball players are shooting some mid-range shots because honestly, they've put the work in and they've proven to me that they can make those type of shots. 3 through 12 probably are not, if they're shooting a lot of those for you, you're probably losing. So my biggest stat over the last 10 years is 24 free throw attempts. If we get 24 free throw attempts, and this is different than system teams. System teams want their numbers being like 70, 80 shots for high school and then half of them being threes. They don't really talk about getting to the foul line.
Right.
And there was a thread on Twitter. Coach Brattenberg loves how certain teams are playing in the tournament, a little bit more post-oriented that you normally see, like Arizona, Purdue, Michigan. These teams have some bigs and they're using them. But my comment was, I don't care how you do it off the bounce. A dribble post up with a small guard like Villanova does in what people are calling post up Barclays.
Yeah.
Throwing it traditional big or off of a ball screen rolling or hitting a cutter in the paint. If you go look at any stat sheet, points in the paint and free throws made, probably the team that won those usually win. I mean, watch Golden State Warriors and all them with all their threes, they still get points in the paint. And 3-point shooting, and here's the key. Villanova gets in the paint off the bounce. Golden State Warriors don't really have a post, but they get in the paint and they can shoot. There's the key.
Yeah.
Your gaps and everything get bigger if you can shoot. So Jay Wright taught this a long time ago. You play offense based upon your jump shot. If you can't shoot, I'm a Laker fan, you're going to get disrespected by Pat Beverly.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook is going to be sitting in LeBron's lap, not guarding him 18 feet from the hoop, and you're not going to be able to score because you didn't put the time and effort into the number one skill in basketball, in my opinion, is shoot the basketball. Have you ever said this? Gosh, I just don't have enough. I just have too many shooters on my team.
Not a grapevine faith. No way.
I mean, it's typically I don't have enough shooters or I don't have enough defenders or something to that effect. But I've never heard a coach complain that they have too many shooters.
You're right on the money. It is the thing. It'll make I just can't think of an offense that even if you're running through a big and you want to get him a touch, you put players around that demand that their players stay close to them, then that just enables more space in the paint. So I think you're right on the money. Yep, right on the money.
In the 150 clinics that I've hosted, I get questions in chat or private chat from coaches, and they range from D1 coaches, D2 coaches. I've had a few that have listened to some of the speakers. Will this work if I don't have shooters? Is the most common question when they're showing zone offense concepts or man concepts. And I go, I don't know what my answer usually is. What does work if you don't have a post player that you can throw the ball into and get you a bucket or create a double team to fire the ball out will work if you can't shoot the basketball.
So I think what's the next question is, okay, we need shooters. Then how do we develop them at our schools? So what are some keys that you have to help high school coaches develop more shooters?
You need to you need to shoot way more than you do in practice, and this is where the Doc Shepler reference came in, where I had a debate on Facebook and stuff with coaches because I run those groups. Like, the question was, do you allow your kids to choose which way they shoot, hop 1-2, or are you a coach that dictates how your program shoots the basketball? And I think the key relationship here is two of the top shooting coaches I know in California are Doc Shepler and Craig Campbell. Craig's won 10 section championships in a row at Clovis West, which happens to be the same school as Vance Wahlberg coaches at. He coaches on the girls' side, and Vance is on the guys' side. And they have feeder programs where they're working with kids from third grade all the way up, and they're implementing hop shooting or whatever style that they know. So those kids, when they hit their programs, are already trained. So not everybody can do that. So I think you need to start with your freshman program when a kid gets there. And in the summer, shoot the basketball. Goes back to the training aspect of this pod. It was, we play too much.
Yeah.
Let's get in the gym and shoot 100 threes a day. Let's do 100 off the catch rips and make a 2-foot finish. We're not shooting the basketball enough. And I think if you do have it, and it's interesting that both those guys are on the girls' side. And winning probably helps them because, hey, I've won this.
More buy-in.
You probably start saying, I should probably listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. But if you watch them play, Doc's team averages 13 made threes a game.
Wow.
He has a school, and it's not size. He's at Pinewood High School. I believe it has 250 students. And he lost in the regional to St. Mary's with Sue Phillips, who coaches for USA Basketball. And he's competing in the Open Division in California.
Oh, wow.
And he was one game away. He lost in the state playoffs to her. They went on to play Sierra Canyon in California for the highest level that you can play in high school basketball here in California, which I would say the teams that were in the Open Division will compete with all the teams in the United States.
Yeah.
Etowanda was the number 2 team in the nation, and Sierra Canyon, who ended up winning it, was ranked number 9 in the nation. So
it shows you that, it's not if I was at a bigger school, if I automatically had better players. I mean, obviously, if you'd like to think if you have 1,000 boys to choose from, you could probably find 10 that can hoop. But if you're at a school like that, and mine is we've got 340 kids, and so half are boys. And this year we made 405 threes. So like our guys, we take a lot of pride in the time that we spend on our shot. But I think you nailed it. If a coach asks, how do we get better shooters? Well, yes, physical reps. Like take the block out drill and the closeout drill out, the one that you just love so much, and take that out or adjust the time and put another 5 to 10 minutes in shooting. But then it's so much too about their mentality. And then it goes back to shot selection too. Do they know what shots they should be taking and they shouldn't be taking? And all of those things tie together though. So it's not as simple as just get more shots.
I mean, we didn't talk about it, but big Doug Novak term that I heard from him is throw strikes. So if you're a baseball player, you got like your shoulders and your hips, like think that's the plate. So if you can hit them in those areas where they're not reaching outside the strike zone to catch the basketball, on time, on target, we've all heard those type of things. If you can throw strikes and get it to your 40% 3-point shooter in a on time, on target pass, your team's success is probably going to start going up because you got the ball to the kids that could shoot it, and they caught it in rhythm on time. So
that's a great point. You know you're in a great you're in a good spot with your team and the culture, the shooting culture, the offensive culture you have when players are driving, engaging, and transferring that advantage to a shooter. But if the pass is off, they're taking ownership for that. Like
Yeah,
that's a good place.
The key analytic I told you was we want rhythm uncontested threes.
Yeah.
Like what you were saying, hand in the face, that. I mean, just that simple hand is like probably drops it 10%.
Let me ask you a question based on that, because I've seen some coaches either in clinics or even in videos say that they practice contested threes, getting guys more comfortable shooting with the handout. My first like gut instinct is, why is your offense not creating more open threes than that they have to become comfortable with the hand in their face? Or is that something that we should be doing that, missing out on?
I mean, we do like a little bit of a warm up where they're not running at them, but it's just kind of a hand up so that they see like they're used to shooting over a hand. But if a guy is flat closing out on you, that, in my opinion, that should be a one more.
Yeah, or
it should be it should be a 0.5 decision to drive it.
Yeah,
you should. I mean, that's how we teach playing. Is the terms I've started to use to make it simple is shoot it, drive it, move it. Don't Carmelo Anthony hold it.
No doubt. I'm writing that down. Shoot it, drive it, move it. I like that.
I mean, that's just you got to do like you were talking about with these kids. You got to give them little sound bites, like something that they can remember. I mean, something Doc Lovett is next one's in. So he's always, if a kid misses a shot in practice when they're shooting or in the game, next one's in.
Yeah.
And the girls actually in this program, there's a great documentary that they have on YouTube, A Season with Pinewood. It's on YouTube, and it just goes through their whole season. And they interviewed a girl and goes, or they were saying, "What do I tell you when you miss?" The girl goes, "Next one's in."
About to get hot. I love that. Yeah.
So I mean, I can go on about him. I mean, he was, or maybe still is, and I got to ask him, is Jeremy Lin's shooting instructor.
What's his name?
Doc Shepler.
Okay. I think mentality is what separates us. I don't think, I mean, we shoot a lot, and we have a lot of shooting games that incorporate time and some type of, it's rarely just volume. It's more some time component, some pressure component, so that the games, the shots they shoot in games feel exactly the same as the ones that they're doing often in practice. But I think what a big separator is the mentality side. What does a miss mean? To players, most players, a miss means something's wrong. I'm not a good shooter. I suck at this game. I'm cold. I should quit playing. And that snowball starts going down. Where if we can, you miss a shot, if we can stop time, allow that to pass, and only focus on what's next, and then all those positive reinforcements that you mentioned, I think you start to have guys in games doing things that are pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think shooting around to shoot around is a waste of time. So like you said, having drills or things in your program where it's competitive, where you maybe make a shooting ladder and you have something, or you give something out at the banquet that was best shooter at this, or drill award or whatever, that measures shooting success from practice, not necessarily in game, but you have to make shooting important.
Yep.
And make a decision that this is correct for my basketball program. I mean, we're talking a lot about offense, and everybody says defense wins games. I just looked the other day on KenPom. Last 3 national championships, team with offensive efficiency was 1 or 2. And that includes Virginia, who was known as a defensive team. They were number 2 in offensive efficiency in 2019. I bet you if your listeners and your audience listens to this, they're going to go, Virginia was number 2 in offensive
That was
efficiency.
surprising. Yeah.
They'll be like, but last year's national championship game, Gonzaga number 1 in offensive efficiency, Baylor number 2. And everybody would be like, well, Baylor was a top defensive team. Well, great. They were 22 in the nation ranked defensive efficiency. So they weren't even a top 10 defensive team.
Wow.
And I just looked at it. 16 teams are left in this year's tournament, right? 7 of the top 10 teams are in the top 10 offensive efficiency. UCLA's 12th. So eight teams, half of the field is top 12 or higher in offensive efficiency, and 5 are top 10 defense, and I believe 2 teams are in both. That's Gonzaga and Houston.
See, what you're saying though, it's just it's not very popular because there's a lot of the either purists or old school guys or just that don't maybe give anything or really believe in the analytics side will say this, or they'll put on a t-shirt, defense wins championships, or they'll have it in their locker room. But I've told people for a long time, it doesn't. You know, it's
you gotta be decent at both. You gotta be decent at both.
It's effort. Like if you're not giving effort, you're not going to win no matter what you're doing.
And if you look at the top teams, what can they do? You can shoot the basketball.
Coach, this time has flown by, and one thing I love to do is a little speed round at the end.
Sure.
It'll allow me to get to know you even better. So you ready for that?
Sure.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip.
I already know the answer to this one. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Oh, definitely yes.
Texting or talking?
What was that? Repeat that?
Texting or talking?
I prefer to talk, but I'll text most of the time.
I've heard a good response to that is it depends on who it is. If it's your mom, you better be talking. If it's somebody like me, you can text.
Well, I'll call, won't leave a voicemail, then I'll text you.
There you go. Favorite holiday?
Oh, shoot. Favorite holiday? Thanksgiving.
I like that. This is an interesting one. Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Nice. The fastest speed that you've ever driven a car?
Just under 100.
All right. 2 more. Favorite place you want to travel? Or that you have traveled?
Favorite place I have traveled? My wife will love this one. Canada, because that's where I met her, Niagara Falls.
Nice. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
0. I'm not a coffee guy.
No, caffeine of any kind?
I used to be a major soda guy. I cut caffeine out about 3 years ago.
What'd that do for you physically?
At first, it was headache galore, and then I felt a lot better.
Yeah. I got one more. This is probably the most important one. Godfather or Star Wars?
Oh, geez. Star Wars.
Nice. The force is strong with you. I like that. Coach, this was awesome. And I've been able to learn from you from afar and been kind of a fan of system basketball. And thank you so much for your time and sharing with us. I loved it.
I appreciate you having me on, Matt.
Hey, will you tell us a little bit about how guys can follow you and learn and see some of your materials?
Well, Coach Marc Hart, so it's Marc with a C, MarcHart on social media. I'm sharing like daily X's and O's right now. But systembasketball.com is probably your best resource for everything I got. Signing up for free clinics or seeing what's in the library. And then System Basketball YouTube channel. I have that's growing, and I'll do like tutorials and my podcast stuff goes on there as well. But probably your best bet if you want to get a hold of me is Facebook group on Facebook. I'm there all the time. I have a few Facebook groups I operate. But systembasketball.com is your best resource. You can sign up on the newsletter and get hooked into the community.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.